Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
LEØN TARØ is an English-Canadian producer, songwriter, and artist. He grew up playing both the drums and classical piano. Whilst studying a Bachelor of Arts in Music, he founded a band with a collection of musicians he got to know from neighbouring music colleges. The band was heavily influenced by both pop and rock and went on to be featured on local radio and also performed at Glastonbury Festival. When LEØN relocated to London, England, his love of electronic music emerged. He started to dip his toes into electronic music production, predominantly in house music. He also started DJing across the city. At this time, he also worked as a touring session drummer for Warner Music, playing at arenas across the UK and Ireland. At the end of 2020, and after years of learning, writing and producing, the LEØN TARØ Artist Project was officially born. To date, he has released 21 songs, and these releases have amassed over 17 million streams so far. They have been featured on television shows including Love Island, played at sport games in arenas across North America, received support from heavyweight industry players including Sam Felt, Austin Kramer, Carsten, BBC Radio in the UK, and received Spotify editorial support including New Music Friday Canada, New Music Friday Norway, dance covers, and Apple Music's New Dance and New In electronic playlists. In addition to this, in 2023, LEØN has played showcases at ADE Amsterdam Dance Event. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got LEØN TARØ.
Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
Hi, Barrett. I am based in Toronto and I'm good because summer's finally hitting here, so we've got the sunshine at the moment.
Yes. I've been to Toronto and I remember my friends who I was visiting at the time said to me the only months I'm allowed to come are either June, July, August. I'm not allowed to come for the rest of the year because the weather is horrible. So I see you, for the listeners, LEØN's wearing a T-shirt, so I know about that summer weather.
Yeah, there's a running joke here that you've got winter and you've got July, and those are the two seasons. It's a pretty long winter we have here. Yeah, it's pretty dismal.
Where and how did you choose the stage name LEØN TARØ?
LEØN TARØ started about just over 4 years ago now. Funnily enough, one of your previous guests in Vida, we used to have a duo together, and then we decided to go our separate ways. And for a couple of years after that, I was always brainstorming what kind of solo project that I want to do myself, and was trying to come up with an artist name at the same time. And at the time, my partner was quite into tarot cards, and I never really thought much of it at the time, but she kept saying, hey, just pull one card a day, see what your daily affirmation is, see what comes up. And the card that kept coming up was the Leo, the lion. Being my real name being Richard, I've always felt sort of a link to, you know, the lion, Richard the Lionheart. There's always that link to sort of that big cat in sort of space. And I just felt like it really resonated with me. So I thought, okay, Leon's cool. Leo's cool. And I also liked the word tarot, but I didn't want it to be so clear that it was tarot card inspired. So I removed the T off the end, put an N on the end of Leo because I felt like LEØN TARØ sounded better than Leo Tarot, and that's how the artist name was born.
Lovely. So now let's rewind. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you feel cool? I want to be in this creative music world, and how did that journey progress?
So for me, I grew up playing classical piano and drums in bands. That was kind of the foundation. It was a lot of rock. It was a lot of writing love songs on the piano as a kid. And then I decided that I wanted to pursue it at university. And so I majored in sort of studio work, music production, also session drumming and performing on drums. And it was from there after university that I went and interned at a recording studio back in London in the UK. Started DJing on the local circuit, was a session drummer touring with bands around the UK and Ireland, playing arenas. And my love of music really started to grow from there. And as I was creating music, producing and writing, it kind of transpired that creating an artist project is naturally what I wanted to do as a result of that.
Obviously, playing drums and that kind of stuff is different genre to what the type of music that you're creating now. How did the transition happen from being in those type of genres or performing in that way to now creating dance type music?
That's a great question. I think dance music is obviously very rhythm and beat driven. So coming from that drumming background and being the foundation of the rhythm section of the bands that I played with and the artists that I played with, it's something that's always really connected with me. And it's something that I feel the foundation of all dance music is built from. It's built from those driving drums, that sort of energy that comes from pulsating rhythms and syncopation. And they kind of go hand in hand with the production there. So growing up and loving dance music in the early 2000s and later on, it's always kind of been in my blood, and then playing drums as well and being fascinated with playing with rhythm. And the two just kind of seem to go hand in hand. And the transition from the pop rock world into the electronic scene just felt natural to me.
How do you create a song?
That's very interesting because it varies from song to song. Sometimes I will work with a vocalist and we will work from scratch. We'll sit with a piano or a guitar, write a chord progression, some vocals, and then from there I'll go away and build up an instrumental and the track around what we've created. On other occasions, if I'm vibing, if I feel like I want to create an instrumental, I will start that way, reach out to the vocalist or friends that I know, either ask them to write the vocal or write it with me. And more often than not, we'll co-write together because there's a magic, something that happens when you're in the room together, writing on a song that you've created the foundation of, as opposed to just sending an instrumental and saying, hey, can you write a top line for me and let's see what it sounds like. So 90+% of the time I will be involved in the top line writing with them, but it really depends on, you know, some days I hear a song, maybe it's Fred again, or it's David Guetta or John Summit, and I'm massively inspired by a song. And I think, okay, I want to create an instrumental in this kind of space. And then we write the top line afterwards. And other times it also depends if I have a session booked with a vocalist and I might send them some instrumentals, but they say, hey, you know what? I want to start from scratch today. Let's build something from the ground up.
What is a top line? What does that mean?
A top line is the vocal. It's the melody and lyrics. So everything surrounding the vocal. It's split into two parts, the vocal tune, the melody, as well as the lyrics that go with that.
Do you still play the drums?
I don't. I still have my my original drum kit back at my parents' place back in the UK, which one day I hope to fly out here when I have my permanent studio space set up. But at the moment, I'm not. I just don't really have the time or the space. You know, it still plays a huge part in my everyday creation when it comes to drum programming in the productions. But physically playing drums, unfortunately, not so much anymore. I do have some drum pads in my studio that I will use just to feel the energy of playing drums. And sometimes programming on a keyboard or on a computer is very different to having a set of drumsticks in your hand and playing something. So it's nice to feel that energy. But unfortunately, I don't have a drum kit with me anymore.
You referenced the computer and the actual physical instrument. Maybe this is a rhetorical question, but you've experienced both. Being on stage, having all the physicality of the movement of the specific instrument, your personal experience of the drums, but obviously there's various other instruments. Do you feel that computers, to a certain extent, have taken away the authenticity and the realness that comes from the energy of a real instrument?
That's really interesting. I think computers are great because it makes it more accessible and easier for people to create. We don't have to spend huge amounts of money to get physically in a recording studio anymore. Massively more accessible to new producers and writers and creators. I think the live performance element, yes, it has taken away from it a little bit, but I think the most successful artists are those that create in the studio and can replicate on a live performance. So it's not, as much as I love DJs, as much as I support DJs, I'm a DJ myself, I think there's a different special quality to a performer who will have synths or keys or a drum pad or a drum kit whilst they're also potentially DJing as well, because it adds excitement, it adds energy, and it shows a little part of the creative process as well, as opposed to sitting behind a computer and just programming in everything with a keyboard and a mouse.
Now, you referenced that you collaborate with various artists. When you're collaborating with an artist that you have as yet to do so before, Is it a situation of you dive straight in and you just get cracking, or do you take time to get used to each other's energies and get to know each other?
That's really interesting. I've talked about this a lot. I believe that as producers, we are therapists as well as songwriters and creators. Every session that you go to, even if you've met someone for the first time, the first 30 minutes to an hour, you're basically pouring your heart out. You're talking about recent heartbreaks or challenges that you've gone through, asking the other people in the room what's going on in their lives at the moment. And you find sort of a common ground that you can relate to and a topic that you can pick out and start to talk about and start to see, well, how can we translate this into musical form? And you start to really get to know someone on quite a deep level within a very short period of time. And it's a beautiful thing because you find this commonality to talk about and to create something around. But it's for sure where I mean, it's not just the producers who are the therapists, it's the other songwriters, it's the artists as well. Everyone in that room is sharing a lot of information within a very short time frame of meeting one another.
Now, when you create or prepare your DJ set for your shows, how do you prepare, and what percentage is it of your own originals compared to remixes, or is it all your own stuff?
It's a combination of both for me. I think if I've got a set coming up, what I will do is listen to what's currently out there at the moment. What are the newer releases? What are people excited about? And what I like to do is try and find new songs as well as old, recognizable vocals, and find some unique original remixes or mashups of them, something that aren't so common or heard on the mass sort of side of things. It makes it more interesting to find sort of the deep dive archives of the really interesting, unique remixes. And sometimes if there isn't something that I can find for a particular song or it's very new, I'll create a remix myself and put that in the set. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you always have to create the full song. It might just be the drop of a song or the build and a drop, and then you transition quickly into something else. Otherwise, if you're creating a lot of new remixes for one set, that could take weeks and weeks. So you dive into the archive of some previous songs that you've created, some of my own original ones, songs that are trending out there at the moment, but also trying to find some unique versions of them that other DJs and artists and producers have made remixes of.
When you're remixing or doing your own spin-off of a song by another artist for your set, do you have to ask permission from their team to have it as part of your set to play?
As long as I'm not selling it or distributing it, I don't have to know. The way I see it, and I welcome anybody also to remix my own music, it's cross-promotion for all producers, all DJs. You know, if somebody hears a vocal that they really like and they come up to me afterwards and say, hey, what was that song? Obviously, I'm going to promote the original and say, well, this was the original DJ and artist, and this is just a quick mashup or a remix version that I've made for my set.
I get a sense that the DJ, the dance world, there's very much support for each other because it's very collaborative. Everyone's sort of promoting each other compared to other genres because they seem a little bit more isolated or siloed in their world. Is my observation correct, or am I completely off track?
I think it resonates part for sure. I think at the end of the day, we as DJs are relying a lot on playing each other's music. It's rare that you have, unless you're an incredibly successful DJ with a huge catalog of successful tunes, you'll more than likely play other people's music as well, or other people's remix versions of your own tracks. So you want to be friendly with everyone. You know, we're all in the same boat. We're all working towards the same thing. There's enough space for everyone to have success and for their music to be heard by the masses. So yeah, for sure, it's a very supportive part of the industry and genre, I would say.
Being a DJ, you need to have a feeling of the energy of the people that are there. Is this something that you've always had or has grown over time?
I think as a DJ, one of the fundamental skills is song choice and reading the dance floor and being able to amend your set depending on how the audience is resonating with what you're playing. If you pre-prepare a set and you play it and you see halfway through that nobody is connecting with you or dancing or enjoying it, then for me, that isn't a successful DJ. You know, fundamentally, it is song choice. People want to come see you for a good time. They want to dance. It's definitely a skill that builds and develops over time. The more that you DJ, the more that you can read the room, read the crowd, and know what crowd pleases to pull out of your database, your library. But I think fundamentally you do need to have that sort of skill set of being a good music curator, choosing the right songs that you know people will like, enjoy, love, and dance to.
What is the difference for you, as obviously your experience, from performing at a sort of club or small event compared to performing at festivals?
One of the biggest festivals I've actually played, funny enough, was with Invida back in Vienna a few years ago. I think small club situations are fun because you can adapt very quickly, read the room. You get that immediate feedback from people that are a lot closer to you. And I also feel you can also probably push the boundaries a little more, go a little quirkier, see what resonates. Whereas festivals, I think they're a little more crowd pleaser and you're a lot further away from the masses. So you kind of want to play a slightly shorter set that doesn't necessarily go as deep or underground, and play those crowd pleasers and hopefully appeal to the masses as opposed to a very small concentrated room.
I love me a CD. For me, I love the journey of the choice, the unpacking, the booklet, the listening from what song 1 to whatever number. I still budget for them every month. I'm not sure if you're aware that massive comeback for physicals around the world. A couple of years ago in London, 5.9 million vinyls sold, the biggest since 1990. Also last year in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge exchanges on. And they need to be a certain number of exchanges every day for a product to be in this basket. And because of the upsurge of CDs again, now CDs are back in the basket. And this research is showing that it's the teenagers, it's the younger kids that are diving into this world, not necessarily the older, nostalgic, in inverted commas, people. Then we also have streaming platforms that people consume music on. What are your observations of the landscape at the moment?
That's interesting regarding the CDs, because I haven't heard much about that. I have heard a lot about the vinyl making a comeback, and have a lot of my peers who are big vinyl heads and collect. And growing up myself with CDs, I do think there's something beautiful about holding a physical product in your hand. Like you said, looking at the booklet, looking at the artwork, reading the credits. Digitally now with streaming platforms, I definitely think we consume music in a different way. It's a little bit somewhat like, I would say, the dating app world with the swipe element factor, whereby quick onto the next one, we'll listen to 20, 30 seconds. Whereas I feel with CDs and vinyls, we sit down, we put the physical product into the player or on the record player, and we listen through from start to end. And that's not to say that people don't do that in the streaming world, but I think it's great with streaming platforms. I believe I actually read this morning, I think 2 out of 3 people on the planet use a streaming platform to listen to music, which is incredible, such a big number. But there's also a large percentage of people that will listen to snippets of songs and then skip right through to the next, and don't give something, the art that's created, the time that's needed to listen from start to end to see whether you truly appreciate what the artist has made for you.
And also, I definitely feel that there needs to be a education piece around this. So I was speaking to a couple of groups of people, 10 and 8 people at different times. And the topic was around how much money they think artists get from streaming. I mentioned the number of 100 million streams. I said to group 1, how much money do you think that artists get from 100 million streams? The first group said $50 million. The second group said $1 million. And I said, well, actually, it's more like $500 to $1,000. And they were shocked. And also, they didn't realize that those people only get that money if they listen to the song from beginning to end without skipping. So there definitely needs to be an education piece around this, because there are a lot of people who are just, as you said, maybe 50 to 60% of the people, if not more, who don't realize this. I mean, a lot of artists are speaking out now, like Snoop Dogg, Ray, a whole bunch of them are saying, hey, hands up, no, this is not okay. What are your thoughts on this element that I've just mentioned?
So funny enough, I was just reading about this today because I share a lot of this insight on my social media and through newsletters as well that I send to my following. And I think the current number is, depending on where you are in the world, it's ballpark in USD, $3,000 to $5,000 per million streams. Now, that is if you own 100% of the publishing, the copyright. If you have a producer, another producer involved, and other songwriters, maybe another artist, that the pie gets cut down into smaller portions. Then if a label's involved, if it's a major, it could be anything around the 85% mark that they take. Depending on how big an artist you are, you might have sort of a little bit of fluctuation there. I actually wrote my final year dissertation paper on Napster and illegal streaming and downloading of music. That was kind of right as Spotify was coming out. And once you give something for free, people don't really want to pay for it anymore. So the only option was this streaming method where you have the free option with ads, or you can pay a premium and bypass the ads. And so it's kind of a fix around the fact that unfortunately music was free 10, 20 plus years ago. I think it undervalues the artist. We're all kind of forced to be on the platform because, as I said, 2/3 of the world have access to listening to music. So it's incredible because more people can hear your music. However, the market has become very oversaturated and the value of music has gone down considerably as a result. So it's a little bit of a way up here. It's like, do you go back to just having physical CDs, but people in a difficult economic climate are less willing to spend their spare money on buying a CD? Or do you offer a product digitally for free and artists can still get a little portion of the pie? It's kind of finding that middle balance between the two. I mean, I've got to say, as much as from the artist perspective and the creator's perspective, it undervalues the music in general. It does make it massively accessible when you're walking, running, at the gym, on a flight. Like, you have access on your phone, which is incredible, to these different streaming platforms to listen to just an abundance of music. So there's pros and cons, and who knows where the space is going to go next. But great for the consumer, less so for the creator.
What's coming up over the next period of time?
So I am in the process for the remainder of this year, creating my debut album for LEØN TARØ. It's been a long time coming. For the last 4 years, when I first started the project, the artist project, I wanted to release singles and I wanted them all to be label supported. And that's what I've done to date. There's been about 20 singles, different labels across the world. It's been great fun. It's been sort of dipping my toe in the water, getting my foot a little bit wet and experiencing what it's like in the electronic space to release music as an independent artist. Now, having done that, I feel sometimes you get a little bit influenced by the trends and what's going on musically in order to accommodate these labels. As a result, therefore, I'm like, okay, I want to create a body of work, an album where it will be self-released. You care a little less about how successful it will be with regards to the streaming. I just want to create art that resonates and feels true to me. So this project, this LEØN TARØ album, I've been very fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Arts Council over here. And that's something that I'm focusing on and going to create for the remainder of the year.
I'm looking forward to that. And being an album and CD person, I'm excited that that's a full body of work. But so many artists these days, it's about the EP, it's about the single. Albums are no longer relevant, which is also not true. Because I like the whole story of the whole thing, a body of work, not just like, he has a too little story and too little story of everything.
I think also I love it when an artist comes up with a concept and the whole album is linked in some way. And as you listen start to finish, you're taken on a journey. There's slower tracks, there's more upbeat tracks. It's again, I think it's going back to what we were talking about earlier with vinyls and CDs. It's sitting down and listening start to finish and consuming the product as a whole and not skipping on to the next song.
I love this game. I know if I had to ask you this question in 2 minutes, 10 years, 5 hours, I know your answer will be different every time. I understand that and I recognize that. If you had to push play to 5 other artists once we finish this conversation, who would those artists be? And if you can think of specific songs from those artists, what songs would you play?
Okay, let me think. All right, an incredible artist for sure would be Fred again. As I mentioned, I think him earlier. I can't pinpoint exactly. I mean, his latest song, I believe it's called Victory Lap, is incredible. I love how he's pushing the boundaries of different genres. I also saw him live in Toronto last year, and his live performance of having a stage with Dex, although he has another guy, Tony, I believe his name is, with him, On either side of the arena, there was also 2 sort of beat pads. So they did sort of a drum off with the beat pads. And then at the back of the arena, he had a acoustic piano and a microphone. So it was a blending of all genres and moving around the arena to perform different tempos and different energies. Beautiful. I think for someone in the electronic space, he has really changed the electronic artist. Okay, secondly, John Summit. I thoroughly enjoy his style of music. I've seen him live a few times. It's great for playing in sets. His remixes are incredible. The bass is awesome. Vocals are beautiful. Tracks he's done with Haler in the last couple of years are incredible. An artist that I was massively inspired by growing up that I still love to listen to when I'm not listening to electronic is Ludovico Einaudi, who is a minimalist modern classical composer. Really beautiful, simple stuff to play on the piano that I used to play growing up, and I still love listening to his stuff today. Absolute, going back to the electronic space, absolute legends that I love, and they recently brought out a new track as well, Swedish House Mafia. Grew up on them, listened to them as individual underground artists as well as a collective, seen them live in Toronto, London, Stockholm, all over the world. I would say they're one of my favorites. And I just love how, again, going back to the rhythm element and talking about drums and energy, they are so good with drums and syncopation and making you just want to bounce and bop on this sort of offbeat energy, which I think they're incredible with. Okay, I will say this because she's a friend that I met at a writing camp recently. Actually, it was last year back in London. Abby Flynn, who's done a track with Nathan Dorr, one with Dubs at the moment. I believe she was just in Ottawa at the festival there. She's an incredible vocalist from Brighton, featuring on a lot of UK, predominantly house music at the moment. And I just think she's blowing up at the moment and her vocals are incredible. So it's always great to support fellow artists, especially when they're having some successes.
So, Leon, the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
I would like to say, come check out my music. Leön TARØ, you can find me on all digital streaming platforms, also on social media, and hopefully I will be playing a city near you sometime soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.